good. Call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. We acknowledge that the town of Winnipeg Beach is located on First Nations Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, the Cree, the Oji-Cree, the Dakota, the Dene people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties made on these territories. We dedicate ourselves to move forward with Indigenous communities in spirit of reconciliation and collaboration to make Manitoba an inclusive and accessible place for everyone who lives here. Before we move forward with the meeting, Council and I would like to remind everyone in the gallery to refrain from conversations or other behaviors that may disrupt Council proceedings. Be it resolved that the agenda for July 23rd, 2025, regular meeting of Council be approved as presented. Can I get a mover? Can I get a seconder? Gene? All in favor, sorry?
No correction to something?
No?
The summary history and discussion for the extension request indicates that the property is in the rural municipality of Lac Du Midi. That needs to be amended to say the town of Winnipeg Beach.
No?
Thank you.
Thank you, that will be corrected and noted.
Thank you, Gene. Councilor Campbell, sorry.
Welcome, Deputy Mayor Holt.
Be it hereby resolved that the minutes of the July 9th, 2025. Oh, I thought I already. Oh,
As amended.
oh, sorry. I'd like to call for the vote as amended. Pass. Thanks again. Okay, confirmation of minutes. Be it hereby resolved that the minutes of the July 9th, 2025 regular meeting be approved as circulated. Can I get a moved by Larry? Second? Councilor Gendron. All in favor? Now we have a delegation. So do we have to break from the meeting or just go right into the delegation?
We can go right into the delegation, yeah.
Okay, we have a delegation. Mr. Greg on the freight truck.
Yes.
Where is he gonna sit?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind standing to present.
Here?
Yeah.
Okay. Go. Your glasses here, Summers. Well, I thank you, Mayor and councilors and CAO for this opportunity to speak to you here. I'm here, my name is Greg Onafrichik. I'm also accompanied with Beverly Self, who's worked on this, initiated this process about 3 years ago, I guess. We're here to request a resolution from council authorizing the CAO to do the following. I have 2 points in here. One is to submit a request for the traffic engineering branch of the provincial government to provide the CAO with the information required to have a pedestrian crossing installed across Stitt Street to connect non-vehicle traffic from Elm Street to the east side of Stitt Street, which we call Site A. This will be in conjunction with the Footbridge Railway crossing. This area of the tracks continues to be heavily used to access the lake, the sidewalk along Stitt Street, and to the downtown. It is difficult to cross the tracks for people with mobility issues, walkers, scooters, wheelchairs, parents with strollers and wagons, and cyclists. The only crossing is to the north of this location on Ash Avenue. This is not a proper crossing and extremely dangerous and avoided by most people. Second request is very similar to number 1, but it's for a different location. It's to submit a request to the traffic engineering branch of the provincial government to provide the CAO with the information required to have a pedestrian crossing installed across Stitt Street to connect the west side of the railway tracks, Site B, which I think is on your maps that were given to you. This is where the town maintains a flower garden at the old water tower at the train station. It is also site number 32 CPR station on the Winnipeg Beach Historical Society walking tour. This will be in conjunction with the footbridge railway crossing. It is a safety issue the town must address because of the encouragement to have people visit the site. This may also be developed by a nonprofit or service organization to create a park and or memorial site. There's also the potential for a large increase in non-vehicle traffic if there is a development, if and when it occurs on the old golf course, as I call it. This would require a walkway through the area to connect to Chestnut Street. So the intent is to create a task force consisting of Lakeline Railway, Traffic and Engineering Branch, and the town of Winnipeg Beach to develop and implement this project. We have conducted due diligence on this proposal. Initial talks with all parties have seen positive interest. Using a critical path methodology, it is determined that the first crucial step is to have the pedestrian crossing approved before any further steps will be taken. It is determined to be feasible. If it's determined to be feasible, then council will be asked for approval before a formal request is made to the Traffic Engineering Branch to proceed. If the pedestrian crossing cannot be done, then the project is dead. If the resolution is passed, I would assist the CAO and act as liaison to get all parties involved to start a formal process to complete this project. My only role would be to coordinate internal communication between the parties involved. I, of course, will step aside at the proper time to allow the parties to work together and complete the project. And that's basically in a nutshell. It's a concept that has been in the making, like I say, for 3 years. There's efforts put in and it dead ended, and we seem to be getting some results now with the due diligence. We've had positive results from the 3 parties that I've spoken to. A lot of people around in this council here, I've talked with them. The railway is very positive about it. You know, nothing is formally committed yet. So the critical path is first one, do we get that pedestrian crossing? If we get that, then we can start going further, getting all parties involved and addressing all the other issues that will come up. And that's basically my resolution request.
Excellent. Yeah. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
And I wanna thank you for taking the initiative.
So what is the next step, I guess? Is there a vote on that now or something, or do we?
We have a resolution later on in the agenda for council to make a decision.
Okay, so you'll let us know what the final result is?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Just a comment, I had been speaking with Mr. Freychuk just before the meeting. We as a council earlier had spoken with the railway, and at that time we were told a hard and fast no. Mr. Freychuk had been speaking with somebody different than we had, so it was not a case of who we had spoken to would change their mind. Very fortunately, Mr. Freychuk managed to connect with somebody who was supportive of it. So I do want to thank him and Beverly for all the work they've done. A lot of legwork for us as a council to steer us in the right direction. So thank you to both of them.
Good work.
Yeah, the really critical thing is that pedestrian crossing.
Yeah.
Once we started talking, we get something like that done, and the railway was right on board, so.
Yeah.
But that's still, you know, to be formalized.
Right.
Yeah, did you ever think of one time of just having one crossing there between the 2 streets instead of the 2 crossings, which would, and also we probably have an overflow parking lot coming in there on Elm Street.
Yeah. That's what
Might cause a little bit of.
That's why we have the 2 resolutions. We have a Site A and a Site B. So Site A is our first preference. Site B is more beautification of the town. There's like a park basically there now that you guys are looking after flowers and cutting the grass. There's Historical Society has something there.
Yeah.
I think the original, and on the 2 sites, the site A was, as Councillor Gendron said, was a hard no because there wasn't enough space from the
Right.
road to the actual, because you need so much space, 7 feet or whatever for sidewalk. And I think that, and the second proposal is way better. So, but I think that's why the first one was a hard no, site A.
Yeah. So there's a change of heart there or something in there, but it's still to be seen. Like it's not formalized yet. You know, everything was in direct talks, and everything was quite positive. So.
Yeah. Excellent. Right on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay. Agenda item 7.1, accounts payable approval. Be it hereby resolved that council approves the accounts payable listing being check number 24660 to 24754, inclusive of checks, electronic payments, and payroll issued in the amount of $145,181.73 as circulated. Can I get a mover? Jarvis? Can I get a seconder, please? Discussion? Okay, call for the vote. Thank you. Alright, so the rest is 10.1, okay. Agenda item 10.1, file number 2025-0605, NGVHP 1-A0- extension request. Whereas an order to remedy a contravention was issued to the registered owner of 418 Oak Avenue, Winnipeg Beach, Manitoba, roll number 60900, in accordance with the Town of Winnipeg Beach's unsightly property and derelict vehicle bylaw number 07-2023. And whereas the property owner has submitted a request for an extension as per section 2441 of the Municipal Act. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Winnipeg Beach authorizes an extension until September 30th, 2025, known as 418 Oak Avenue, into compliance. And be it further resolved that no further extensions will be granted. And be it further resolved that if the property owner has not brought the property into compliance by the extension date, council authorizes the bylaw enforcement to have the bylaw infractions rectified in order to bring the property known as 418 Oak Avenue into compliance, and that all expenses incurred by such work will be charged to the property owner. Can I get a mover? Councilor Gendron, can I get a seconder, please? Councilor Jarvis? Any discussion?
Yeah, I got something. People are to keep their places clean and tidy without clutter such as derelict vehicles, garbage, and tall grass. But this extension, if so given, will maybe let others know that they can get away with this until a bylaw officer knocks on their door and then proceed to give them an extension of a few months to clean it up. It's up to us, the community, the people, to keep our yards tidy at all times. This is also not something we need tourists seeing that visit our town. I would recommend myself giving some leeway, but 4 months is a little long to have it cleaned up. My thought is maybe mid-August, and they were notified, I believe, in June, early part of June, so I think that's a little long, 4 months to clean something up. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Gendron?
Yeah, a letter was submitted. The individual is elderly and is dealing with some health issues. I can certainly agree with most of what Councillor Kozlowski said. I think every situation is looked at on its own merit. It's not opening the floodgates. This isn't something that is precedent setting and therefore we are required to follow it. I do, however, would like to see something provided in writing from the property owner with a schedule of sorts and follow up with our bylaw officer or bylaw enforcement to ensure that the dates provided and what is expected to be done by certain dates is done, but indicating that once they miss a date, they're in default and it's immediately back to being that they've missed the date would be my recommendation for this.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
No.
Okay. So we're gonna call for the vote, I guess?
Are we gonna consider, Deputy Mayor Hull, are we gonna consider putting any
Hmm.
revisions in? asking, you know, perhaps asking for a monitored update, like,
Yeah,
submit, if they could, if we allow it, that they submit a
Time
completion
frame.
plan with timeframes, and that our bylaw enforcement follow up, and if they haven't met a condition by a date that they've committed to, they're immediately, the extension is immediately revoked.
Yeah, I don't think that's unfair. I think that's, keeps us in touch with them as well.
And,
Sure
and
that
gives
progress.
the property, well, actually the person living there, the time, given their health conditions too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if anything's been done from the date June, whatever, till now. Has anything been done or cleaned up, et cetera?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything, so.
Some progress has been made on the file, however, not enough to substantiate a closed file at this point. So,
It's ongoing.
so there has been some progress made, yes.
That's positive, you know,
Pardon me?
it's positive, at least something's started. I'm not opposed to creating a timeline and having communication to make sure it's being followed. Your thoughts, anybody?
I agree.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think they're giving them to what, end of September to have it cleaned up, which again would be 4 months.
you would like to see it shorter?
Yeah, I would, somewhere in the middle of August. You know, started in June, July, you know. I think 4 months is a little too long, and like I said, everybody should keep their yards clean and, you know, derelict vehicles, which is happening around the beach area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So I'm just a little bit confused on the 4 months. This is almost the end of July and she's asking for the end of September, which is 2 months from now. And the letter that she submitted has indicated that she has been working on the property, but has some health and age issues that are hindering her ability to show great progress as she is trying to filter through things. So it's really only 2 months from now that we're giving her.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, Councilor Jarvis, sorry.
I'm in favor of the extension of the 30th. I drove by the property and frankly, the property behind and the property beside it are equally, at what I would say the same level of unsightliness.
Go ahead.
So if, it would be hard for me to pick on one and not pick on all three of them. So I think
Right.
this is something that's been, and in the town of Winnipeg Beach, this has been persistent on many properties, you know what I mean? So I think as we progress to try and get some of this cleaned up, that we're gonna have to give a little. Because for years, this has been allowed to, I mean, we've had maybe in my 3 years on council, 2 properties come across as unsightly, you know, and
Yeah,
so I think if we're gonna do this to one, then we gotta start putting the hammer down on a heck of a lot more. If I could find a dozen without even trying. So if I'm in favor, if the woman's shown progress, with or without the health issue, she has shown progress, and if she says, as indicated by September 30th, it's not done, then we can start adding penalties.
yeah, okay. Yeah, you know what, I'm in favor of the extension as well. So, if we want to, no more further discussions, or?
Yeah, I'm fine if, with the extension without the monitoring, if, I just thought, you know, maybe the monitoring might be, it might just keep things in check, and that's all, but I'm fine either way, with or without the monitoring.
This
Well,
is-
I'm okay with.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry,
No, you go.
no, I'm okay with the extension, and I also like the idea of having some
Okay.
sort of check-in,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind the check-in either, but I would like to, this is coming through the commissioners. This wasn't our bylaw officer that did this. Who issued the original unsightly, the contravention?
It is our bylaw through
Okay,
commissioners.
would we, and I would feel comfortable if, without even having to look at it, if you knew if the other properties in that area had been given some sort of an unsightly.
We can, like, we need to just focus on the current property.
I
right now,
understand that,
but we can-
but if,
We can
Yeah,
investigate that
like,
after the meeting.
again, I drove by it front and back, on Ash, and I drove on Oak, and there's 3 of them, like, the one in there directly beside them and the one directly behind them. all have abandoned vehicles on their property. In fact, the one directly behind them on Ash has an abandoned vehicle in the front yard and an abandoned vehicle in the backyard. So,
And that's something
and
that.
I have a hard time, and again, as mentioned, regardless of the health issues and the health concerns, I have a hard time saying to one person no and the other people are equally as responsible, so.
And each property has different timelines and
Correct.
different
Just-
deadlines, so this specific one is coming due. The other ones, we would have to look into further. What I can do is we can amend the resolution to include that the property is subject to periodic progress checks.
Yep,
If council agrees to that
Yeah, I
amendment.
can do that.
I like that.
Is that by the bylaw officer or commissioner?
It's through our bylaw enforcement, yeah. Okay,
Okay, good,
I've got the amendment here, do you want me to read the resolution in full?
sure.
So whereas an order to remedy a contravention was issued to the registered owner of 418 Oak Avenue, Winnipeg Beach, Manitoba, roll number 60900, in accordance with the town of Winnipeg Beach's unsightly property and derelict vehicle bylaw, number 07/2023. And whereas the property owner has submitted a request for an extension as per section 244(1) of the Municipal Act, now therefore it be resolved that the town of Winnipeg Beach authorize an extension until September 30th, 2025 to bring the property known as 418 Oak Avenue into compliance, and be it further resolved that the property is subject to periodic progress checks, and be it further resolved that no further extensions will be granted, and be it further resolved that if the property owner has not brought the property into compliance by the extension date, council authorizes the bylaw enforcement to have the bylaw infractions rectified in order to bring the property known as 418 Oak Avenue into compliance, and that all expenses incurred by such work will be charged to the property owner.
Excellent. Okay. All right. Yeah. All in favor? All opposed? Okay. Carried. Got a little hinge on my shoulder. Okay. Agenda item 10.2. Council agenda submissions. Whereas the councillor has requested that members of council provide written background when submitting items for the meeting agenda, and whereas council supports this approach to ensure members are prepared for discussion and decision-making. Therefore, be it resolved, any council member wishing to add an item to a meeting agenda must submit a written report or summary prior to the agenda being finalized. And be it further resolved that administration prepare the necessary amendments to the procedure bylaw for council's consideration. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Gendron. Can I get a seconder, please? Mervis? Discussion.
I brought it forward, we had an agenda, there's been a couple times, there's been items on the agenda with no explanation or clarification of what the issue is, which makes it difficult for preparation for not just council members, but also for the CEO to be coming to meetings prepared. So I am requesting that we ask admin to prepare a policy so that this can start happening and we're all, doesn't have to be anything elaborate, just so that there's an idea. I mean, as you all know, I had to actually email out last meeting to find out what something was about on the agenda that had been submitted by a member of council. I just think it'll be helpful for everybody all around.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jarvis?
I have, like last meeting, I put on a thing about just the cost factors for the spay and neuter program,
Yep.
for the animal control officer. So sometimes I request just throw on like a hydro bill. So you would want a brief explanation as to why that's on there, or?
No, are you, sorry, is Councillor Jarvis referring to his request when we were doing the finance pieces?
Well, certain things, like even with reference to the feasibility study on the canteen, et cetera, like
No, that's things that come up during discussion. I'm referring to when there's an item put on the
okay,
agenda.
so an
when the
actual,
agenda- yeah,
like, cause
an
sometimes I
actual-
ask for things,
yeah.
I say, can you just throw that on there?
No, not things that come up during discussion about an agenda item, but when a councillor puts an agenda, or the mayor puts an item on the
Okay.
agenda, some
Okay.
background information, so that we can come prepared, the CAO can be
No,
prepared.
I understand.
Yeah, that's
I
what
just
I'm-
wanna make sure that I
Yeah.
can still, every once in a while, say, I want a number thing on there, so.
You know,
Yeah, no, just.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, and then the other thing, is it in here? The other thing was, that I want, also was requested to be included is any additions to the agenda that come up, if they aren't time sensitive before the next meeting, just so that, again, we can prepare for it, there can be information on the agenda about it. Of course, things are gonna come up that can't wait till the next meeting, and that's completely different, but I was also hoping that we could avoid putting items on the agenda that aren't time-sensitive decisions. And that be included in the policy as well.
Councillor Bill.
Yeah, if the councillor wants to add to the agenda, I don't see the reason why a report must be submitted first. Once a vote is taken to add to the additions, there will be a discussion or debate following. We sometimes forget, or we want to add on the last couple of days or the week, and not able to do so if this is passed without a storyline. Submissions are supposed to be in a week prior to council meeting on the Wednesday. And a lot can happen in that last week that can transpire and will not be able to reach the table for another 3 weeks, which is the next council meeting. Thus, I wish to continue on the way it remains, and I'll yield to the CAO what is in the Municipal Act and what their take on this is, and have we not been following proper procedures on this item as stated.
So currently, there is no specification, no clarification in the current procedures bylaw for council, aside from requiring it to be submitted by noon the Wednesday prior. As for the Municipal Act, I would have to investigate further to see if there's additional clarifications, but from my understanding, the Act just requires that council establish a procedure bylaw. That procedure bylaw can be whatever council decides it to be, for review.
Because in the past, we've always added stuff to the agendas, and previous CAO says it's fine.
Yes. So just to clarify my point, I understand that that's what's been happening. My point is, things are getting added to the agenda, that the only ones that seem to know about it are members of council who have discussed it amongst themselves before a meeting. And not everybody is aware that something's going to be added to the agenda. So I don't think that it is being fair to all of council. It's not being fair to the CAO. And if it isn't time sensitive and needs a decision within the next 3 weeks, I fail to understand why it is so urgent. And when I'm requesting that people provide background information, it is so that we can all come to the table prepared, including the CAO. I not once said we weren't following things or we were doing things incorrectly. This is simply a request that we start providing more information for agenda items so that we're not going in circles for 40 minutes on one subject when we can all come to the table prepared and cut down the discussion time on it.
Would it be fair if something was added to the agenda that everybody got an email about the request?
Absolutely, if somebody knows that they're gonna be putting something on the agenda and at least shared the information with everybody.
Yeah, to the Wednesday prior to the meeting, and everybody gets an email.
To say, and an explanation, we're going to be requesting this be added to the agenda.
Yeah,
Absolutely, that would
Satisfied.
satisfy exactly what I'm asking for, which is a heads up on things.
Councillor George?
Yeah, and a couple things, because I agree with it. Because there's been a couple of times that things all of a sudden, even in the additions, all of a sudden it's there. Like we come in and we're completely ill prepared for it. Even as simple as an email would suffice. But I was under the impression that you had 48 hours. If you wanted to add something to the agenda, that you had 40, according to the Municipal Act, you had 48 hours. So example, Monday by 6 o'clock, it's gotta be on there for Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Unless I'm mistaken. That I'm positive in the past that we've discussed this. So, and you need 2 or more people to do that. You can't just have one counselor say, look, I want this on the agenda. If it's an agenda item, not the financial thing.
That might be specific to a special meeting of council, where you would have to have, like, agreement. I would have to look into that for sure, but
I'm positive, and I'll look into it as well, but I'm positive I read that.
I know for sure in our procedures bylaw, it states that it either has to be submitted the Wednesday before, or if it's added at that meeting, that council has to agree to add it at that meeting.
Yeah.
But I can clarify and double check on that 48 hours notice.
Okay, thank you. But I would appreciate an email too or something, because I've been confused sometimes.
Okay.
Not often, but occasionally.
No, I think an email's fair,
I think so, yeah.
information is,
Well, it gives you an opportunity,
yeah.
and I like to be prepared.
Okay, so do we need to,
Do you want to amend the resolution, under therefore be it resolved that any council member wishing to add an item to the meeting agenda must submit a written report or summary prior to being finalized? If you wanna strike a written report and just a summary prior to being finalized,
I like that.
would that be sufficient? And then it will clarify administration, prepare the necessary amendments to the procedure bylaw, and then that will come to council again, just to confirm what council is wanting to see in that change.
Yeah. I just don't wanna see anything delaying, you know, I don't want stuff
And
getting
Councilor Hall,
delayed.
that's why I'm saying this
Yeah.
isn't in reference to time-sensitive issues where, let's say, just for example, we got a donation letter late and the event is next week. We need to make a decision on it before the next council meeting. Those aren't the things that I'm referring to. I'm referring to things being added to the agenda that are a discussion that can wait until the next meeting. Or a decision that can wait until the next meeting because there's no timeline attached to it.
And we've deferred things before because it's the first, all of a sudden, presto, it's there.
Yeah.
And we've had to defer things.
Yeah, first heard defer.
Sometimes if you have some information beforehand and you're able to look at it, then we might stop some of the deferrals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could also vote against that as well. When it
Yeah.
comes up on the agenda,
Yeah.
like we were doing.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
so you amended it then?
Yep, I've amended it if you wanna strike that section on yours as well.
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay, so do you have to reread it then, or are you gonna?
Sure. Whereas a counselor has requested that members of council provide written background when submitting items for the meeting agenda, and whereas council supports this approach to ensure members are prepared for discussion and decision-making, therefore be it resolved that any council member wishing to add an item to a meeting agenda must submit a summary prior to the agenda being finalized, and be it further resolved that administration prepare the necessary amendments to the procedure bylaw for council's consideration.
So sorry, there's nothing in there about the agenda items agreeing to, if you're needing to add something to the agenda after it's been set.
That would be a vote
That
of
would be a
council
separate,
at
yeah.
that meeting, right? A
So we're
separate
still,
resolution.
so,
that would be an addition or deletion, and as Councilor Kozlowski explained,
yeah, I
we
understand
would
that.
vote on it right
I
away.
understand that, it's an addition or deletion.
Yeah.
So, we won't be getting the heads up, we won't be getting the email as discussed. Could that be included in this? That council's intending to add agenda items at the meeting.
But that would cover your time sensitive thing you said, if we're just suddenly throwing it on there, that would cover the time sensitive.
Yeah.
Without actually having,
The resolution doesn't specify whether it's like beforehand. Oh yeah, it does say,
Yeah.
any member wishing to add an agenda must submit a summary prior to the agenda being finalized.
So,
Right.
yeah, so my intent of that was with your request to add something to the agenda, you also include a report or a summary, so that when the rest of council gets the agenda, they see what the intent of you adding it on there was, and what about it you wanna discuss.
Instead of utilizing the word finalized, would approved suffice? Cause then you have to submit the summary before the agenda is approved, which would be
Yes.
at that meeting.
Well, no, because then that leaves, we may not get something until right then, which gives us no time to prepare.
but are you still talking about additions and deletions?
No, I'm talking, no,
Because on the finalizing of the agenda on Friday, if somebody puts something on there and nobody knows about it, isn't that what you're saying, well, provided?
that's why I wanted as finalized, not approved. Because the agenda is finalized on Friday, right?
Right.
Correct.
And if somebody puts something on there that you don't know, it's no background information, you're requesting background information.
Yeah, I'm requesting, so, okay, I'm just gonna use this as an example. I asked for this to be on the agenda, I submitted
Right.
information as to why I wanted it and what I wanted on there. So, I just want to, sorry, you guys, I'm just.
But I like I'm okay with this, because the addition and deletion, as Larry's indicated, should be totally separate. Because suddenly something comes available on Tuesday, and it comes on and said, but we have the opportunity, and we've done it in the past, we can vote it off, or we can accept it.
Well, we can, but it requires a majority of council. So if one person isn't comfortable or wants more time to look at it and wants it deferred, the rest of council can disagree and still want it on the
But-
agenda.
But you're still talking about an addition and deletion.
That's right.
Okay. Wouldn't that be separate then? Suddenly there's something,
But it could be included in the same policy.
Right.
The policy that administration is preparing is relative to council agenda item submissions, whether it's in advance or it's requesting it at the meeting. So would it not make sense, Jody, and maybe I'm not thinking right, that are they not similar items that could be included in the same policy?
What I would recommend is that, I would say we deal with this resolution and then
the addition, deletion is
do
separate.
another resolution for
Okay.
that second part that
Okay.
you're inquiring
Okay.
about, or you're asking for,
Okay.
if council wants to.
Yeah, I think, and I hear what you're saying, Gina, I just think it's too broad of a thing.
Yeah, no, that's fine, yeah.
Okay, so haven't made any. The resolution is still as it stands that I had previously.
That wishing to add would require information, background information. Would not add,
Yeah.
wishing to put something on the agenda would require background information,
Yeah,
as to
we'll
why it's there.
do a separate resolution.
Not everything requires background information.
No, but,
Like, you know,
no. But we've had them in the past where, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, typically administratively, when anything's going on the agenda, it's either a letter explaining what somebody's asking for, or it's a report from, admin or any department to council explaining what the ask is for. That's what it's been, current process.
Councilor,
Okay, so again, I'm gonna go back to the accepting the agenda. Because you have more experience than I, if I don't want something on, like if suddenly there's something on the agenda with or without background information, I can still, when you say accept the agenda as presented, I can still say no, correct?
Correct.
yes,
Because, yes, so is that what the bog down is? Like, I don't know, I hear, I think I'm confusing myself, so. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, like, going back to the very beginning, I accept the meeting as presented. that we didn't have any additions or deletions today, so we accept it. Now, if there was something on there that I didn't like or didn't know, am I able to do that? Just say I don't wanna accept that.
Sorry, but we did have a change today. I pointed out.
Yes,
that
exactly.
something that
But I
so,
thought, yeah,
Yeah, so we did have a change today, so it ended up being as amended.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, each member of council can vote if they wanna add or remove an agenda item, that's a separate decision. And at that time, if members of council don't feel comfortable voting on an item, you always have the ability to table.
Right, we've done that in the past.
Right.
Or first read
And
defer,
sometimes,
right?
as
Yeah.
Gene's indicated, it's time sensitive, so we say, hey, defer that to another meeting.
Right. Okay. So what we'll do is I'll read this resolution through one more time. Council can decide, and then, if council wants to give direction to do another resolution further, then we can go from there. So the resolution reads, whereas a councillor has requested that members of council provide written background when submitting items for the meeting agenda, and whereas council supports this approach to ensure members are prepared for discussion and decision-making, therefore be it resolved that any council member wishing to add an item to a meeting agenda must submit a summary prior to the agenda being finalized, and be it further resolved that administration prepare the necessary amendments to the procedure bylaw for council's consideration.
I have another question. So, this background information comes to us through the agenda? Correct? Like,
Well,
Okay, let's back up. There was an item added to there was an item on last month's agenda, last meeting's agenda. The three of you are all aware because I included you on the email.
Yep.
I had to go to the person that asked for it and ask for some detail on what the discussion was going to be about. Got a very short answer
yeah,
that didn't quite match up with what part of the discussion was at the meeting.
yeah.
So, a little more detail on that.
No, I appreciate that.
And that's what I'm looking for is,
But
just
my
give a bit
question
of
is,
detail.
how do I get, is that available to me, or is that information available on the agenda? Because everybody can read this agenda, correct?
Yeah, it's on the agenda, so if it's no different than.
Okay,
a
okay, I just wanna
yeah,
make sure,
Yeah,
just-
no different
I
than,
want
yeah, it would
everything
be
out in the
included,
open
yeah.
so that
Yeah, it would be
Yeah, I don't
included
want-
in the agenda, so you also
none
then
of
have
these
to be
locks
careful.
on there that,
Yeah, you have to be careful on,
yeah, I just wanna make
Right,
sure that it's
yeah.
completely transparent.
yeah.
Okay, I'm good now, I have no more questions.
yeah, yeah. So again, it's before it's finalized, and you said something about we could do it, or it used to have till the Wednesday prior, so that will now change.
So you would have to, with this amendment, council would have to submit in, their report the Wednesday prior to the meeting.
Okay,
48 hours before it's finalized.
yeah,
And once again, what if there is no report or summary?
Then it's,
Or is it not gonna be added to the agenda? Once again, it should be put to a vote, either yea or nay, or table it. What's the hard one?
yeah. Councilor Jenny?
Yeah, okay. This discussion is not about last minute additions to the agenda. This is things being submitted to the CAO to be included on the agenda that are submitted by the deadline of the Wednesday. So we don't get to vote on the Wednesday whether something gets on there, the CAO puts everything on. And if there is no background information available, then that's all the counselor would submit is no background information available.
Yeah.
And you're at least acknowledging that there's nothing, or you're submitting something.
okay.
So you don't, some subjects may not have something, but just by submitting it and saying that there's no background information on this subject, That's your summary or your submission to go with your request.
Right. And again, if there is information, it'll be in an email and everybody's gonna have it anyway, right? So,
Well, no, that was a discussion for the addition
yeah,
at the
but
meetings.
same with, yeah,
These ones, if you're submitting an agenda item, you're
Yeah.
submitting your summary or your background information at the same time.
correct,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
And again, once the agenda's, if it's passed by everybody, that we can still add additions and deletions, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
There's nothing
Before-
changing in that,
Before the agenda is passed at that meeting.
at that meeting.
yeah, you have to,
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
to make that statement, yeah.
So same as previous,
Yeah.
and that's why we've been working for the last 3 years.
Yep,
But I also agree that, prior to the Wednesday before you submit something, if you got something, submit a summary if you have. Okay.
well, it's just fair to everybody if the information is out there. Yeah. Okay, so we, call for the vote, I guess? On this one? What? All in favor? Or not?
You have to
Oh,
vote too.
sorry. Carried. Alright. Agenda item 10.3, RCMP reports. Be it hereby resolved that council accept the following reports from the RCMP as presented. RCMP quarterly reports, Gimli Detachment, RCMP Annual Mayor's Report, 2025, Start Model Programs, 2024 Annual Report. Can I get a mover, please? Larry, can I get a seconder, please? Councilor Gendron. Discussion? Okay. All in favor? Passed. Okay. No. Thank you. Alright, 10.4, pedestrian crossing proposal evaluation. Be it resolved that council authorize the chief administrative officer to submit requests to the traffic engineering branch of the province of Manitoba for the purpose of obtaining technical requirements and feasibility information related to the installation of pedestrian crossings on Stitt Street at 1 Site A connecting Elm Street to the east side of Stitt Street in conjunction with the proposed railway footbridge, and number 2, Site B connecting the sidewalk and flower garden near the historic CPR station site, number 32 on the Winnipeg Beach Historical Walking Tour, also in conjunction with the proposed railway footbridge. And be it further resolved that the CAO coordinate with Lakeline Railway and the province to establish a working group to evaluate the proposal, with the understanding that no further action will be taken without council's approval following a feasibility review. Can I get a mover, please? Councilor Gendron. Can I get a seconder, please? Councilor Kozlowski. Discussion.
So are these gonna be, and I heard from Mr. Onufrichuk, is it gonna be site A or B or both, does he want? Because once again, if you've got 2 crossings that are 50 feet apart from each other, and especially if we're gonna have overflow parking on that side of the road, east of Stitt side there.
Yeah, I believe you want both.
I think it's just to authorize the CAO to request
To
a
get it
traffic
going.
study. Yeah, because there's no sense if we don't, if a private citizen won't get the answer, but the CAO will from the provincial government. So,
And the idea by submitting site A and a site B is that if the feasibility study or feasibility information comes back that maybe one site
doesn't work.
does not
Yeah.
work, then we've, started the legwork for the next site.
Have a fallback.
Yeah.
Right.
And regardless, the final decision will be council's to make.
and plus the fact, as expressed, is that there's no sense putting all that time and energy into it to have us not approve it.
Right.
So he wants the approval first to move forward.
Right.
Right.
And there's no doubt there is a need for it.
There always has been, but
And there always has been. But information we got prior from Durelby's was
the other guy we
different.
spoke to was a lawyer.
A little different than
So,
he got.
Yeah, and he was, as a lawyer, his concern was liability on the amount of, the distance between the actual start of Stitt and the actual track. So that was his big concern, because people are gonna circumvent that. If they go 180 degrees, you might have enough, but if they wander a little to the side, then they might be losing some valuable property there. And you get hit by a car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think as, you know, Mr. On Freychuk said, I mean, there are a lot of people with mobility issues, and I'm really hoping that, that this goes.
Yeah, well, that one on Ash by the tracks there is just useless.
Yeah,
And I mean, I go through there all the time, and sometimes, lots of times on foot, and you have to cross over Ash to go onto the north side of Ash, because the one on the south side is useless. You run out of the sidewalk before you hit the tracks.
yeah, yeah. Okay, any further discussion?
No.
Okay. Call for the vote. Passed. Thank you. Okay, 13.1 roundtable discussions. Anybody have anything to bring up?
But what? You're always looking at me. I have a list.
Do you have a list?
Go ahead, you go first.
Go ahead.
No. I'm the same old all stuff. I need to know how the big sign works where we promote all the businesses. Is that a one-time issue? You get to put your name on that sign by the skate park and
No, I believe you,
you have to renew it?
yeah, you have to renew it.
So is it current? Do we know how many renewals we've received? I know it was an awesome idea, and I know I mentioned it last time, but there's 3 on there that'll never renew, so should we take the old business down? And that might, having a blank space, that might promote somebody
Yep.
to say, hey, I could put my name up there.
Well, there's a lot of new business in town, and
Yeah.
they may wanna put their,
Yeah, cause
Sign.
there are a couple new businesses coming in that
Yeah.
might wanna be on there.
yeah.
And we've got 3 that aren't. And then, can we talk about the historical banners too, before we run out of warranty on the clips? Do we know anything more about that?
That has been tasked to the department to further investigate.
Public Works, you mean, or
Yes. Yeah, I don't have
can
any.
we make sure that we put some sort of that this is a thumb on that, because what I don't wanna find out is in October that the warranty's expired and, yeah, the clips were done, you know.
Can we request an update?
Yeah, can we
Yeah.
find out what's going on? There has to be some sort of dialogue between the Public Works Department and whoever we purchased them from, because they're gonna wanna know who put them up.
Yeah, it is on my radar to follow up and to see where we're at with that.
Again,
and
we
then
are
I
under
can-
warranty, we're gonna look really
Yeah.
dumb if we have to buy $1,500 worth of clips that we shouldn't have had to buy. If I mean, there's recalls all the time on stuff. And then, I had another one in my head, now I don't have it anymore.
Can I touch base on that community sign?
Sure.
Yes, it is an annual renewal program. We're in the process right now of removing the businesses that have decided not to renew. There is a waiting list existing, which we're in the process of. Once the signs have been renewed, we'll be reaching out to those local businesses for consideration, and then at that point, if they're not filled by people who are already on the waiting list, we'll be opening it up and advertising.
And which municipal department is looking after that?
Administration.
Okay, and I remember what my last one was, the EV charger. Can we go to 5, can we just make a decision? Can we either A, find out how much last year we spent in electricity? Because I know this is gonna happen. We're spending $100 in electricity and we're generating $50 in revenue. All I wanna do is be even. Do you know what I mean? So, and there has to be some sort of an algorithm that says, look, if you fill it for this much, this is how much it's gonna cost. I don't wanna make money off people, I just want to not lose money, because it's not our money to lose. So if we either A, go to $5, because we're at $2 an hour, you know, and I'm positive right now that we're losing money on that EV charger. You know, we should put a sign on them out of order, and we'll save money, you know?
Council already has given direction to prepare an updated costing for that. At this point, we don't have information ready to present to council, but it is being worked on.
Good. Done.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Okay, Councilor Jones.
We had our town participate in the town forum on the 12th of July. I'd like to thank Jody and her team for all the hard work that went into putting things together. And you don't realize just how much has been accomplished in a year until you see it all together in one report. I would like to commend the Town of Winnipeg Beach staff, and I'd like to just highlight a few of their accomplishments in communication. The town began the development of a strategic plan, which will serve as a guiding document for future priorities, planning and budgeting decisions. In terms of infrastructure, a major focus was on drainage. The staff completed improvements on Lake and Pleiades, to name a couple. And these upgrades addressed long-standing surface water issues and will help improve stormwater flow and reduce pooling in surrounding areas. And Public Works also did additional work that was completed in various other locations in the town that were identified as top priority. On the financial side, the town finalized and submitted the 2021 to 2023 financial audit statements, ensuring that our reporting remains transparent, compliant, and up to date. In protective services, we placed an order for 2 new fire trucks with delivery expected in 2026. These vehicles will significantly enhance our emergency response capabilities, replacing aging equipment. And finally, in recreation, the town expanded its recreation programming to offer more opportunities to residents, especially youth, to stay active and engaged throughout the year. 2 new programs were introduced, the Ringette programming, which gave local youth the chance to try a new ice sport and help increase the use of the arena during the winter program season. And a Go Girl program, which focused on introducing girls to a variety of different sports and physical activities in a supportive and fun environment. And in addition to new programming, we also saw our highest number of bookings for rentals, minor hockey, and tournaments during the winter months, showing not just strong community use, but also regional interest in using our facilities. These additions are part of a broader effort to make recreation more inclusive, better utilize, and be responsive to the needs of the public. Overall, these accomplishments reflect continued progress in key areas, so kudos to all the town staff for a very successful 2024. This past Sunday, I volunteered at the Curling Club Golf Tournament at the Inwood Golf Course, where 22 teams had a lot of fun and a chance to win some great prizes. And this Saturday, I will be sitting in the dunk tank during Boardwalk Days to help raise money for the Curling Club. So for those of you that have ever wanted to take a shot at me, now's your chance. I'll be in the tank from 1:15 to 1:30, and it's $5 for 3 balls to shoot at me. That's that.
If you get dunked on the first ball, do you still have the other 2 balls?
Yeah.
I'll get up. If you can get me down 3 times, Councillor Jarvis, the curling club will appreciate the $5.
Well, thanks for doing that. Yes, Councilor.
Yeah, I was at the Legion at the Hypnotist show this past weekend, and there were almost 200 people there. It was a great show put on by Brian and Shirley, alias Rhonda, and they gave their services for free to the Legion, so which was very commendable. After the show, light lunch was offered. I had my sister-in-law got hypnotized, and she was one of the last ones there, and pretty funny, and she didn't remember anything, and it was quite comical, and it was a great show again. And also, don't forget, we got the firefighters breakfast this Sunday, Boardwalk Days, so in the AM, so do come out and support your firefighters. Thank you.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, the Hypnotist show was quite funny, quite funny. Lots of laughs. They put it on really well. They did a good job. Yeah. All right. Okay, council committee and board reports approval. Be it hereby resolved that council approves the council and committee board reports as presented. Can I get a mover, please? Councilor Gendron, can I get a seconder? Councilor Kozlowski. Any discussion? No? Call for the vote. Passed. Thank you. Alright, 14.1, accept correspondence. Be it hereby resolved, the correspondence be accepted as circulated. Can I get a mover, please? Councilor Gendron, can I get a seconder, please? Councilor Jarvis? Any discussion? No? Okay, call for the vote. Approved. Thank you. Bear with me here. Alright, 15.1 in camera. Be it hereby resolved that council moves in camera at
7:01.
7:01 to discuss legal matters, and be it further resolved that any matters discussed while on camera to be held confidential until such time as discussed in open council. Can I get a mover, please? Councilor Gendron, can I get a seconder, please? Councilor Jarvis? All in favor?
That all sound good? You can see us?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, be it hereby resolved that council moves out of camera at 7:23 and resumes the regular meeting of council. Can I get a mover, please? Kozlowski. Can I get a seconder? Councilor Jarvis. All in favor? Passed. Alright, 16 adjournment. Be it hereby resolved that council adjourns the July 23rd, 2025 regular meeting at 7:03. Can I get a mover, please? Councilor Kozlowski, can I get a seconder? Councilor Gendron. All in favor? Passed. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.